Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. Welcome to the Tim May podcast featuring Boston Ward. Hello, Boston.
Hello, Tim. How are you?
And of course, this is not, it may seem like it, but it's not a Groundhog Day edition. It just seems like we woke up yesterday and it's the same as tomorrow or the day before, et cetera. Bottom line is, I've got a couple of guests on this week's show. Jay Richardson, a former Ohio State defensive end who played in the NFL, was a starter as a rookie with the Oakland Raiders, has his own thing going now, but he had some great insight, not just on what's going on with the COVID-19 pandemic cancellation, et cetera, in the Big Ten, and what these players may be dealing with from a mental standpoint, but he also has some insight on Jack Sawyer, my other guest this week, rising star, big time defensive end from Pickerington, who has opted to forego his senior season at Pickerington to get ready to play football at Ohio State. Who knows? He might get to play football in the spring. What do you think, Boston?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of complications before we can get to that point, and you don't really necessarily want to roll even guys as physically ready as Jack Sawyer out there for a true freshman season after maybe 5 or 6 or 7 practices. I mean, that's going to be a challenge for everybody. We're going to have to go one step at a time, but that is certainly part of Ohio State's new sales pitch to these recruits who might be able to enroll early that, hey, maybe there's a chance for a spring game for you.
Yeah, save all of that good savory stuff from this bouillabaisse we're dealing with here today, because we're going to have a little short segment with you and I after we have Jay Richardson and Jack Sawyer. But the interesting thing here is we all know about the Justin Fields petition that as we started recording this on a Monday morning, late Monday morning here this week, had already gathered more than 235,000 signatures, if in fact that's what you call them, on Twitter. And we'll get into whether Kevin Warren and the Big Ten, how much attention they should pay to it. But also, as you well know, I had Dr. Corey M. Teague, the father of Ohio State football player Master Teague III, on with a separate short little podcast, a reprise today, where he and the parents sent a letter to the Big Ten asking for basically reconsideration about the season. And obviously, several other schools around the Big Ten have had parents do the same thing. I do believe Penn State, Michigan, I think Iowa, right, Nebraska, have all joined in that's 5 schools. I mean, that's a lot of parents speaking up, and we're going to touch on that when we get back. But first, enjoy this interview I had with Jay Richardson, a former player at Ohio State, like I said, who went on to an NFL career and is back in town and does things with Channel 6, but also has his own little gambit going, and he has some interesting takes on the current situation at Ohio State and in college football. And as promised, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back with a blast from the past. He's a blast from the present. Jay Richardson. Jay, thanks for joining the Tim May podcast.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. Always fun to hang out with you, brother.
All right, same here, man. We were talking. They couldn't hardly separate us the other day when we were waiting outside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, because there's a lot of conversation to be had these days about what's going on. And and you branched off. You're doing all kinds of things besides television. Give people some idea of what else you're doing in your life.
Yeah, I'm doing some podcasting as well. I got the 2 Cents show that I host, obviously, and you know what? It's really cool because we get into that gray area between sports, entertainment, sometimes politics, in real life, and I think it's important for people to get a chance to see these athletes up close. I've been able to interview a bunch of Olympic athletes, interview a bunch of my former teammates. I'll be having Maurice Clarett on again pretty soon. He's doing some amazing things in the business world.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of highlight that. And I had most recently Jalen Holmes, who was the defensive tackle for Ohio State during this, the national championship run, defensive end. Now he's with the Minnesota Vikings. He's kicking butt up there, looking to fight for a starting job this fall. So I'm excited to watch him. A local hometown hero who we don't talk a lot about, Bradley McDougald, was with the Seahawks, just got traded in that blockbuster trade for Jamal Adams to the Jets. We talked about that. He's loving the Jets, loving being in New York. But I just want people to kind of go along with these athletes' rides and their experiences and connect with them as humans and not so much just as, hey, there's that guy that I see on TV. Like, no. Here's his life. Here's what he really goes through. It's not that much different than yours. And I think my podcast, the goal is to bring people closer.
Yeah, it's funny because the way you describe sports now, it is an amalgamation of politics, of entertainment, of hard work. It's kind of like the Mississippi River when it reaches New Orleans. There's a lot of tributaries that have gone into it.
Sure.
To make it mighty. But I want to get to you. I mean, this is a challenging, interesting time to be a college athlete, maybe even a high school athlete, but we'll talk about that in a minute, but also a pro athlete, right? I mean, It's coming at you fast these days, right? I'm talking about for those guys.
For these guys right now, there is no, you know this, Tim, us athletes, we're creatures of habit. We rely on structure. This is why guys do better generally in Bill Belichick's program with the Patriots. It's not because they love Bill or because it's a fun program, but there's a specific structure and there's a culture to it, and guys adhere to that, and then they do well. When left to our own devices, most of us young guys, who knows what'll happen. And I think this has been a challenging time for athletes just because there's been so much time off. Guys aren't really sure what to do. They're trying to work out. They're trying to stay focused, but there's so much uncertainty with the seasons, with these bubbles that you're seeing, obviously NBA, NFL can't really do one. And then college football, man, it's a disaster. When you look at these conferences, they knew this was coming back in February, and they've had tons and tons of time to figure something out. And especially when you look at the Big Ten, you get the rollout on Wednesday of here's our schedule, and then the following Monday we're shutting it down. And you're like, you guys had 6 months to figure this out, and this is what we come up with. So No one really knows what's happening. I feel bad for the athletes right now because it's such a tough territory to be in.
Wouldn't it be really sad if you find out in the final analysis that what they did by putting out that schedule was throwing everybody a bone, and then
right,
and with no intention to ever let them eat that bone, for following up on my analogy there, because it did come so rapid fire. I know, we know about the heart situation that a lot of people are worried about with this thing, but you can get that whether or not you're practicing football or not, whether or not you're even an athlete. There are ways to monitor that to whether you do. And like I said, well, if a kid gets COVID-19 and he does develop that, he just doesn't play. But, does everybody not play because this guy can't play, And the idea that necessarily COVID-19 is going to spread more rapidly through a football team, well, there is evidence that if it gets into a group of people, so to speak, who are together every day, that it does spread rapidly. But Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and most of these schools have done a great job in the Big Ten of keeping things, sequestered, keeping guys away from each other. But ultimately, you do have to play football. And like I said, your ilk, the guys that played on the lines were probably the most in jeopardy because of facing each other from 5 to 15 seconds of play, every play, breathing hard on each other. But that's supposing that the guy across from you has got COVID, but they had set up the testing protocols to safeguard against that, right? So, and they never really let it even take shape in preseason camp. How frustrating do you think it is for a football player to be thinking through all of that?
Oh, it's beyond frustrating. And I think what the kids are trying to tell us, if us adults would just listen, is we want to be at the facility. We want to play football. We feel safest at the facility. We don't feel safe not playing football. And I think that's what people have to kind of wrap their head around right now is, and I'm telling you this, Tim, as a former collegiate, high school professional athlete, the safest and most cared for I've ever been is when I was a part of a football program. Meaning, especially right now, when you look at this COVID stuff and you look at what's happening across the country and really the world, these kids are going to be in an environment where they're going to be tested twice a week, where they're going to have a full medical staff on call 24/7, and where they're only going to be interacting with other guys who have been tested twice a week. And it almost is like a bubble in a sense. And what the Big Ten is saying when they say, no, we're not doing sports, we're getting everybody out of there, is you're kicking the kids out of their bubble, kind of like this is where they feel comfortable. And you're saying, no, we're not going to do it because we can't control the optics. We can't control the liability. And most importantly, we can't control the PR of how it might look. And I guess I'm of the mindset that to hell with the PR right now. The safety of the kids is obviously paramount. That's most important. But once we can show the numbers decreasing and their safety going up, which we have done over the last handful of weeks, I mean, it's quantifiable. So then what are we really talking about here? And I think, it comes down to liability with these schools, and it comes down to, no one wants a massive class action lawsuit down the road. And I guess you have to understand that, but let's not pretend this is just strictly about player safety, because if it was, they'd be at the facility right now practicing, and you would not be even teasing the idea of having a spring season and then a fall season right after that. That's not player safety. So I think we all kind of have to hop back in the reality boat and get out of this dream boat that we're in of what we think could happen.
What about the love boat, man? Why don't you get the love boat to come to the dock? I mean,
love that.
Yeah. But here's the thing, like I had Dr. Corey M. Teague, who's Master Teague III's dad, and he's one of those leaders of that, that letter they wrote, the Football Parents Association of Ohio State wrote to Kevin Warren, along with like Penn State had the same group do that, to Iowa over the weekend. You're aware of all that, but I asked him this. I said, if you're giving approval for your son to play football under supervised conditions from the standpoint of the protocol set up for COVID-19, and your sons are, with Justin Fields' petition that he put online when I went to bed, as we taped this on Monday morning or recorded this on Monday morning, it had over 215 or 220,000 signatures as of Monday morning of people stepping up and saying, yeah, we agree with this guy. But aren't you kind of taking yourself out of the idea of being able to turn around and then sue, if something then happens to you, if in fact the protocols are set in place, you're taking that step of we accept the risk. You're a former player, you understand that too, right? I mean, there are some precedents being set here by letters being written.
I think that's a huge part of it, and I don't know if it's going to work, man, Tim. I hope it does. I hope it at least moves the needle enough to get the Big Ten to sit back down. Yeah. And I hope it's not just the Ohio State bubble here in Central Ohio and getting involved. I hope the whole Midwest kind of gets on this train. And
let me interrupt you, Jay.
Yeah.
Just wait till they cancel SEC football. Then you're going to see some bubbles.
Right.
It's going to be like a kid's. It's going to be like a kid's birthday party. Go ahead now.
Well, they're all going to lose it, man. And we all know the SEC, they operate a little differently down south. They kind of do their thing. But I agree with you. I think this thing is, it's got to be an all or nothing thing. Either every conference has to just figure it out and let's just forge forward, or I don't know that any one or two are going to be able to stand on their own with all of this. But when you talk about these parents and what they're able to do, and Justin Fields getting all these signatures, this is why everyone's talking about unions, player unions for the collegiate athletes, because it's one thing to have these kids sign a waiver, just the kids, and say, hey, we're agreeing not to, sue, so there's no subsequent suits down the road, and we're agreeing we're going to risk this to go play our sport. And I think the kids would all sign it because they want to be there, and they understand that they're safer there than they are on the streets. But I think it would be a stronger thing, because some of those waivers are paper thin. They might not hold up if some time down the road someone wants to sue. But if there's a union behind it, or at least a document like these, this document with all of these signatures behind it going, hey, we are all vouching for this. We are all, kind of endorsing this idea. And all these parents are going, yes, we want to. Then it becomes a much stronger thing. If for some reason there is a parent or a couple way down the road that decide to do that, they can have a document that they can look back on and refer back to and go, look, you guys all signed off on this. You guys wanted this. This is what comes with it. And I'm okay with that. I think we all got to get away from this idea. And this might be an unpopular opinion, Tim, but this idea that we can hide from COVID-19. You can't hide from it, okay? It's out there. It's going to be working its way through. 99.36 people are going to be just fine. So instead of hiding, let's accept our reality here in America and let's not let it destroy our industries, and let's not let it destroy our sporting industries and and our economy, because that's the real danger. I think if the economy tanks and everything goes down and we lose our way of life, well, that'll take us out far more than a medical emergency will.
Yeah, take proper precautions, et cetera, maybe even more than ever. But I see where you're coming from. I understand that way of thinking. But being 66, I don't want to get it. So there's that other side of it.
By the way, you look great, man. I tell you what.
Thank you very much.
I thought you were 48. They told me you were 48. I believed it.
Yeah, you ought to see what I'm wearing, man. Below this jacket. But that's another story. That's a podcast. That's a podcast for another day. That'd be NC-17. But I digress. Real quick though, this is what has jumped out in Jay, because you played college football. What has jumped out from this whole thing, as much as anything else, is major college football is not a ship unto itself. It's 10 ships unto themselves.
Yeah.
With no admiral, telling them where to go. I mean, I'm talking about the NCAA.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's like it looks like a bunch of cats who've just been let out into somebody's house. They all go different directions. 3 of them hang out together. The rest of them go another way. And I'm running. I could have analogies out the yin yang here, but I'm not going to get to that. But it is crazy that, think of the National Football League. If the AFC East wanted to play, and the Central didn't, or the North didn't,
right.
I mean,
it'd be chaos.
You would never see that, right? But that's what we're talking about. But that's what we're talking about here. Instead of 32 teams in the National Football League, you've got whatever it is in the Power 5, and three of the 5 Power 5 conferences are still determined to play, and the other 2 aren't. How can you let that, as an organization, how can you let that happen?
It doesn't make any sense, Tim. And I think what we're finding now, what this whole year, this pandemic year has kind of shown us and exploited, is the fact that the NCAA as a governing body is pretty inept. They don't really have a plan, and they never really did. They are slowly showing themselves to be, might I even say, obsolete or unnecessary. I feel like that's what we're moving towards with this, and this year has kind of accelerated it. One, you got player likeness and stuff coming up next year. Well, they'll be able to earn off their likeness, and they'll be able to kind of have a little bit more of a say, these individual athletes. But that's separate. I think as a conference, all these different individual conferences, especially the Power 5, once they realize, hold on, if the NCAA is not going to offer any guidance or get involved during the time where we need it most, what do we need them for? Why have we been, why have we even been allowing them to kind of hold this over us and be this governing body if they don't govern? I think moving forward, things are going to change radically in college football. And I think this is going to be the catalyst for why, 2 years from now, maybe a year and a half from now, we see a completely different landscape across the board in this country with our NCAA. I don't know that they're going to be necessary anymore, especially if a couple conferences find a way to forge forward and have a season. By the way, Tim, I don't know how you declare a national champion this year.
I don't either. I mean, we'll see where that goes.
If you wanted to move forward, you could have an SEC champion, and you could have them, line up against a Big 12 champion and call it whatever you want to call it. But it's not going to be a college national championship.
I think they call that a bowl game.
They just call it a bowl game. They're just playing ball out there. And that's great. But, I think what they will all take from this is, what do we need the SEC for? The NCAA for again? Because
but let me jump in here with this, though, Jay. This is what's interesting. Just when you get your freedom, as the old saying goes, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. As Janis Joplin, Chris Christopherson wrote. But you still have to have an organization. You will still have to have rules. You will still have to have a rules organization. It would just be tailored. The problem has been they've had a hard time keeping the Power 5, along with what I call them the next 5, because I never can remember the name of the next 5 conferences that are in Division I, and they're apples and oranges. They really are. The MAC school budgets and revenues compared to Big Ten revenues. That's a stark example. But you still would have to have a governing body with rules. You can't just have people, running amok, et cetera. So that will be the next move, I think. But there will still be an organization of some sort formed to deal with it. You agree with that? You have to have that, right?
Yeah, you can't have the inmates running the asylum, so to speak.
Right.
You kind of got to have someone to jingle the bell and go, hey, all right, everybody, bring it up. Here's what we're doing. Here's how it's going to work. And I think between the Power Five conferences, they can come up with something, some sort of a board or a body made up of maybe the commissioners of each conference and the ADs or their respective conferences, and come together and say, all right, here's how we're going to run this. I think we can all get on the same page with this and come up with a list of, they can do their own thing. If nothing else, this year shows you don't really need, everyone is going to have to be self-sufficient as an individual conference and figure it out. So if that's the case, I'm sure they can figure out how to come together and form their own deal. And I think
let me tell you something. Anything affiliated with college sports, though, in the final analysis, the presidents and chancellors of the universities are going to be in charge. There's no way, there's no way you can get around that. And of course, the big concern, if that's the right term. Obviously, Christina Johnson, the new president of Ohio State, and Gene Smith were for delaying the start of the season, but not pushing it to spring. At that, when that big meeting was, you and I were standing outside the Wood Hayes Center last week talking about things. They were for that move, but evidently others were for canceling the season and playing in the spring. Real quick before I move on to what else I want to talk to you about, can a spring season work, in your opinion? Can you play 6 or 8 games and then turn around and play 10 or 12 games in the fall? Is, in your mind, as a former player in both the college football and the NFL, can that work?
Tim,
for just one time and out of history?
Can we do a one-time only spring season? Here's the thing with the spring season, because it leaves more questions than answers. And I want to start with just the obvious stuff. Let's get it out of the way, right? You're going to try to start it when? January, February, March? What are we really talking about?
Let's define it. We're talking about spring semester, not spring.
Exactly. What is a spring? Because Ryan Day wants to start, January right away, and other people are like, well, let's give it till February. So that's right. Question one. Number two, if we're not safe in August, September, why are we more safe 5 months from now? I don't know what's going to magically happen other than the election that's going to all of a sudden make us safer. By the way, quick, just pause, put a pin in that. Speaking of the election, it was interesting to see Donald Trump tweet about how we need to have college football. I'm wondering if that's going to have any weight on trying to get something done to get these kids back on the field. Who knows? I don't know. Let me hop back into the spring. So we're not sure of the timing of it. We're not sure what counts as spring. We're not sure if we're going to be any safer. And then let's just talk about the idea that we know the top tier kids. Your Sean Wade, your Justin Fields, your Wyatt Davis. I don't know that these guys are going to play. Your Chris Olaves. Do you see them deciding to risk it all for 6 weeks of football, 8 weeks of football? I just don't see that, Tim. And I don't see these guys risking injury, particularly when they're not sure what the NFL is going to do about the draft. We all know that there's a clause in the CBA with the NFL that they can move the draft back as far as June if they need to. And that's cool. That would work for a couple of guys. Here's the kind of guys that would work for. That would work for guys like Jonathan Cooper, guys who haven't had a full year of film in their prime to show what they can do. He's a captain on this team. He had a medical red shirt. Came back, wanted to play in one game, that Michigan game, but he really hasn't had a chance to show the next level because he is an NFL talent physically. He's an NFL talent, but he hasn't really had a chance recently coming off injury in the last 2 years to really show what he can do. Spring season for him makes sense. You get out there, you get 6 weeks, you tear it up a little bit, and then these guys go, okay, great. He's healthy. He's good to go. Let's get him into the combine and see what he can do. That makes sense. The rest of the guys on the team, it makes no sense for. If you're an incoming freshman and you play in that spring season and then you turn around and they want you to play in the fall, you were just in high school last year. You're not built for that. As somebody that went from basically a spring season in that I played in a national championship in 2006-07 season. So I was in a national championship. I went right from that to a bowl game, the collegiate bowl games where it's like an all-star game, right? Played in the all-star game to get evaluated by the pros, then started training for the NFL Combine, had the NFL Combine, had the draft, got drafted by the Oakland Raiders, and then go right into, OTAs, right into mini camp, right into training camp, and then directly into a full NFL season. And I started 12 games my rookie year. So I played every single game on the schedule, all 16. That was the longest year of my life. My body almost I almost exploded, Tim. It was almost over.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
When I was ready to, by Thanksgiving, I was ready to quit football. I mean, it is.
Dude, the dude wanted to play football, ladies and gentlemen, and became a full-time job. It wasn't as much fun as it looked, was it?
Beyond, I mean, even with the checks rolling in, I'm like, yeah, the money's great, but I can't see straight in the mornings.
Yeah.
I can't get out of bed. Like,
Well, just from a mental standpoint, it had to weigh on you ridiculously, Jay. I mean,
you're trying to learn new playbooks. You're trying to, learn new city maps in your head and get used to living in the West Coast while also it's just too much. So,
and you're getting banged up, and you're trying to play banged up, and you're trying to figure out, to rob Peter to pay Paul from a physical standpoint. I would think that was go ahead. Yeah.
It's not fair. It's not fair to these kids to have to do that because they're not getting paid like I was. So these kids are not professionals, and you're thinking they're going to go play a 6-8 week season in the spring, train all summer long, and turn right around and have a fall. And then here's the thing. What counts? What doesn't count? Does that count against their eligibility? Are you going to let them all just have like a free spring season and it won't count against their eligibility? So when all the guys come back, they're still sophomores, freshmen, juniors, seniors. It still doesn't quite add up, and we're trying to make sense of it. But I'll be honest with you, I don't see a spring season happening. It sounds nice, and I know we all want it because we all love football, but it's just not realistic. We're going to have a season that needs to be right now. Otherwise, we're going to have to scrap the whole year and try again next year. I think that's just what's going to happen.
Yeah. And you and I both know this isn't like the XFL, though. If they did kick the can down to the spring, Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska, which has got a fervent following. I mean, my point is people would definitely watch it. I mean, this wouldn't have to, it would be all kinds of reasons to watch it. But like you said, if you're really, truly all about the health and welfare of the student athlete, how would you ever orchestrate this that it made sense except for play just to play to get some kind of like in quotes, a 2020 season on the record book? That's what all you'd be doing, right?
That's what they're trying to do. And Tim, really quick, if I can, I don't know if this is realistic or not, but just from what I know about Dwayne Johnson and his purchase of the XFL with his partner, Danny Garcia, his ex-wife, by the way, what a cool, partnership there. They must have a good relationship, which I think is very impressive. I think there's a space there for some of these guys if the XFL can get things set up fast enough, if they can get a quick, hotel deal done, stadium deal done, and create a mini bubble, so to speak, and form 6 to 8 teams and have a quick spring season. Seriously, I think this is actually possible. You right away have a niche because there's going to be nothing going on football-wise in the spring. I don't think we're going to have a spring season in college football. And if he can get all of those guys who don't want to come back for another year, they want to get ready to go to the next level. And he can say, all right, here's a 6-week audition. You come play 6 games in our league. We'll pay you. And the NFL's watching. Everyone's watching. That's not a bad space to be in. If they can get this thing packaged up, the TV rights would be huge. We're all going to watch because we crave content right now, specifically football in North America. So we're looking for that. And if they can get that set up for some time and, right after the Super Bowl, have something ready to go, that would be pretty awesome. I think we'd watch that. Yeah,
there have been so many attempts to form what I call that league in between major college football and the NFL that have fallen on tough times because they don't really know how to sell it, who to sell it to, when to play it and stuff. But we're seeing all kinds of things that are coming from this pandemic that have spawned these other ways of doing things. And that could be finally the impetus that they need to get something going there. But of course, the key there is not getting it going; it's the keeping it going. Sounds like a Seinfeld episode. But hey, I want to ask you this, Jay, before you go. You were a star coming out of Dublin, Scioto, right?
Yep.
And you were a local kid. We all did stories on you when you committed to the Ohio State University, as you call it. Put yourself in Jack Sawyer's shoes. He is determined he's not going to play this fall, for his school in Pickerington, and just get ready to enroll at Ohio State early. He's considered the number 3 overall prospect in the country, a defensive end. How tough is it being that kind of player locally, signing with Ohio State? What are the challenges he faces from the standpoint of the attention, et cetera? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, first things first, let me give Jack Sawyer some credit because, one, he was on my show last year, on my high school football show on First Scores on Fox 28. Yeah. Love this kid. Great, humble kid. Fantastic looking athlete, by the way. The kid plays basketball, football. I mean, he can do it all. He was playing quarterback. I watched him throw touchdown passes. Yeah. I watched him catch touchdown passes as a tight end. I watched him sack quarterbacks all in the same game. I'm like, who is this kid?
Mr. Touchdown. That's his nickname. Go ahead. I mean, that's what I'd call it. Yeah.
The dude's a freak athlete. He can do it all. So I'm like, I was beyond impressed with this kid. And then when I got the news recently that he's like, I'm just going to go try to play the spring ball. Like, why are we even going to mess around with the high school season if I could have a chance to play in the spring? And my first thought was, what? And then I thought about it some more, and I was like, well, that makes so much sense. Why wouldn't you? If you're not going to have a real high school football season, if they're talking about a 6-game season and they're not really sure how realistic that is, sure, why not? Go ahead and enroll and get ahead of schedule on your classes and get ready to go. But let me just speak to being in this Columbus area bubble and being a local guy and being somebody that everyone knows, because I think people who are born and raised here, and I was actually born in Washington, D.C., Tim, you might not know that, and I lived overseas as a kid. I lived all over. And
hey, I was born in Alabama, raised in Texas, so I know where you're coming from. But go ahead.
That's where that Southern boy twang comes from.
Yeah, I wasn't just faking it, man.
It all makes sense. Here's the thing. When I got to Columbus, I didn't even play football. Like I didn't grow up watching football or playing football. I'll be honest, I walked into school one day and I was the biggest, blackest thing in the school, and they were like, you should try football. And we're like, let's give it a shot. Turns out it was a good move. But for me, it was overwhelming, the attention, because I wasn't ready for it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what an athletic scholarship was when I was a sophomore at Dublin Side of High School. And I got my first phone call as a sophomore in the middle of football season from Frank Beamer. I didn't know who Frank Beamer was. And he goes, listen, I'm here in Virginia Tech, and I want to let you know that we want to offer you a full athletic scholarship. And I said, all right, man, thanks. Hey, Mom, I think this phone's for you. I don't know why he's talking to me. And I gave my mom the phone, and she got all teary-eyed. She goes, sweetie, that means you have somewhere to go to school. And I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't really planning on it. I wasn't sure.
You know, somebody was trying to sell you a timeshare in Western Virginia, didn't you?
Right. I'm like, what is he trying? Like, who is this guy on the phone? I remember Lou Holtz coming, wanting to send a limousine to come pick me up my junior year and bring me to South Carolina. And my mom going, wait, you want to send a car and drive him to South Carolina and to check the trunk of the car? And she was like, I don't feel good about this. And I mean, stuff like this was happening, Tim, and I'm 17. I don't know anything about this world. So I could imagine, and I wasn't as good of a player as Jack Sawyer. I'll be honest. I think this kid's a freak of nature. I think he's amazing. So I can't imagine all the lights on you, and there's that local pressure of wanting to excel in front of all of your people, so to speak, right? Like these are, when I got to Ohio State as a true freshman, I remember thinking, oh, wow, everyone's watching now. And all of my high school classmates, teachers, all of my friends, family, everyone's right there. It's like they're all still right there next to you. And there's a lot of pressure in that. I can imagine being these guys coming from out of state, Santonio Holmes coming from Florida, Nate Sally from St. Thomas Aquinas down there in Florida, all these guys are coming up. They don't have anyone around. They're just, out here playing football and having fun, and they're happy to be away from home. Whereas we're still right in the thick of it. And every single practice, we'd have people, from my high school there. My high school coach would come to practices at Ohio State and check on me. And it's like, sometimes it's much. Like, all you guys to kind of back off and just let me kind of figure this out, because it's a lot of pressure. I can imagine what he's about to be going through, being such a big name kid locally here. It's a lot. All of the sportscasters. I knew who you were, Tim May, when I was in high school. I knew who Clay Hall was. I knew you because you guys covered me, and I see all the same faces when you get to the Woody Hayes Center. It's the same faces, and you're like, man, the show just keeps going on, and the show gets bigger. And for some kids, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it's funny, Jay, because you were a late bloomer football wise, but clearly Clearly, you had some ups, man. You started 12 games as a rookie in the National Football League. You know, I mean, that's crazy to think about. But now you have expectations, like you're talking about. Jack Sawyer's supposed to come in and be pretty good right off the beat, like a
Joey Bosa, right?
like a Chase Young. I mean, that's a lot of pressure to live up to, right? Because no matter, I don't care how good you are in high school, it is clearly a talent cultural shock.
Yeah.
You know, when everybody's as big as you, or almost everybody's as big as you, and almost everybody's as fast as you,
and smarter than you,
and that's hard. And they have, and you go from being coddled to now the coach is screaming at you. I'll never forget Mike Vrabel screaming at Joey Bosa. You know, using some choice epithets. Go ahead.
You go from being the most dominant kid in your school or league, you know, in high school, and I'll be honest, most kids have bad habits coming into Ohio State because they didn't have to try that hard in high school.
Yeah, didn't have to.
Just bigger, stronger, and more athletic. It took me 2 full seasons at Ohio State just to learn football technique, just to learn all the nuances to the game. I was still new to the sport of football. I'd only been playing since high school. So I was a super late bloomer, and then I didn't even understand football concepts when I got to Ohio State. I put my same hand, same foot up in the ground when I got into my stance, and I'll never forget, you know, Coach Jim Haycock goes, "Oh, Jesus, kid, we got to figure this one out. How are you getting lined up like that?" And I was like, "Oh, this is what I do." He goes, you got 10 sacks last year lining up like that? He goes, "Oh, man." He goes, "Yeah, you're a good athlete, but we got a long way to go." So those kinds of things. And the kids now, because of social media, because of the huddle and all the recruiting stuff, and because of the media machine of us saturating the market with them, they don't have time to develop. So Jack Sawyer won't get the kind of grace I got to be a late bloomer. We're expecting him to come in and be Chase Young, to be Nick Bosa, to be Joey. You know, same with Zach Harris. We're expecting him next year to dominate because, damn it, that's what we've been seeing out of our defensive ends. And you super talented guys better be doing that. And I think for him, that's going to be a shock. It's going to be you're going from the big fish in a small pond to you're a decent sized fish in a huge pond, man. This is almost the ocean. This is Ohio State. Everyone's good. Half of these kids are going to have a chance to go to the NFL. You have the genetics for it, but you better learn real quick how to produce at this level. And thankfully, he's got Larry Johnson, who is the best in the business, flat out. The defensive line coach, Larry Johnson, whose son I played against in college and in the pros. He was a running back for the Chiefs, who were in our division with the Raiders. And I got pictures of me slamming his son on his head. And I know Coach Johnson laughs at that. But he's a fantastic coach, man. He's a guy that he helps these kids hear first. So he'll help them. He'll help Jack Sawyer manage his expectations for himself. He'll teach him all the techniques he needs, and then he'll help him focus on his job when he gets on the field, because it's a job now. This is not just playing in college and class. No. This is your job, and that's what people need to realize. It is not a game. Yeah, and you might be wearing a mask while you're playing it. No, I'm just joking. By the way, touch on this real quick, and I'll let you go, Jay. I appreciate this. You know that, man. This is the same kind of conversation we're having outside the Woody, except why not tape it? Is the way I look at it. How is Larry John? I've been around a lot of coaches, you know, head coaches, assistant coaches, going all the way back to high schools back in Texas and stuff. But Larry Johnson is as interesting a fellow as I've ever been around. I'm talking about, I mean, I've heard him lecture a couple of times, like the Ohio High School Coaches Association and things like that. But the passion he brings, he's such an amiable person, you know, just in public when you're dealing with him. But the passion he has and the way he's always looking for that new way of doing things. You know, you've always got to be changing to stay ahead of the posse, so to speak, you know. But just I don't know, how much of a luxury is it for these guys who have been playing football at Ohio State, playing defensive line, to have him as their tutor? I mean, supposed to swear by him, you know, for example, Chase Young. Let me tell you right now, he is a guy that could be a head coach at almost any Power 5 school out there. Seriously, he has that kind of ability to lead men.
Agreed.
Any athletic director out there would want him to be a head coach. He's choosing to stay with us. And they had to increase his pay accordingly, as they should have, because he's turned down tons of jobs. He beyond loves what he does. He has pass rush down to a science. He has defensive line play down to a science. He has formulas for how this should look, and he finds a way to make it easy for guys to quickly grasp these concepts and get ahead of the mental curve. And I think that's his biggest gift. And then his other biggest gift is his heart. He loves these players. He loves their families. These parents trust him with their kids, and these guys adore him. I remember talking to Joey Bosa before the national championship, when we were playing Oregon, and I remember him gushing about Coach Johnson and him saying, and this is before he officially declared for the NFL early, but we knew he'd go.
Yeah.
And so he kind of said this, which was his way of saying he's leaving early. He goes, man, I'd stay another year if it meant just to be coached by him. And I go, so you tell him you're leaving? He kind of smirked and kind of goes, I can't say anything right now. I'm like, yeah, you just did. But just him saying that, like, I'm willing to play college ball one more year if it means I can be around my coach. That's how much they love him, because a lot of these guys, they were whatever about Urban, and it's not because Urban wasn't an amazing coach. It's because Urban's personality at the time. He was a bit prickly, and he was tough on you, and that was what was necessary for us to get to where we got to. And I respect and love Urban Meyer, by the way. I adore him. But I think Larry was the guy that he was the dad they all wish they had. He was like, he's warm, he's intelligent, he's encouraging, he builds you up. He's never looking to just tear you down for the sake of tearing you down. It's always. But he was
in your face. He was honest with you about mistakes, et cetera, like that. I mean, that's what. I mean, like I say, he teaches you the smarts of the game, but also the aggression that it takes to be that upper level player. I mean, it's not stand there and wait for something to happen. It's make stuff happen. That's what I've loved about their defensive line play under his, along with everything else. You're right. I mean, that's the guy who my heart kind of goes out to. He and Greg Madison, for example. I mean, they're older fellas, but my heart kind of goes out to them this fall because they've gotten, they're just an example of getting players ready to make that next step, to step in for like Chase Young, Zach Harrison. And now it's kind of being denied. And, finally somebody does have to make a go, no-go decision on whether you play football or not. And that's just life. Somebody's always got to make a decision you don't agree with. But those are the guys they've built these, for one another, like Wright brothers, they built these airplanes. They want to see them fly, but they're being.
Well, I mean, think about it, man. You're talking about guys who it's no different than a guy that loves to restore classic muscle cars, right? Yeah. And you spend hours under the hood getting the body right, tweaking the engine. You want to crank that thing up, and you want to see what it can do one time. I mean, and you think about guys like Coach Kerry Coombs, right? Like guys who just are passionate, who bring the energy every day, and they don't have a chance to go out there and see their product perform and be with them. They want to go into battle, man. These guys are generals. They want to go out there and feel it with them. And it's like they just have to sit and hope that this whole thing gets figured out.
Dude, how many times they remodeled the Woody Hayes Athletic Center? They're going to have to do it again. They're going to put new carpet in there again because you got to figure these guys are just walking around wearing out paths in the carpet because they want to get out, like you said. They want to see their new muscle car, all the work they put into it and stuff. Hey, Jay,
fortunately, Les Wexner's got enough of this right here. They'll put all the carpet they need. Maybe some waterfalls and a spa in there now.
Oh my goodness, man! You just opened a can of worms of why I'm going to have you back on again. We can talk about all the water wall and stuff. As I once said, I hope that's chlorinated, but that's another stuff. But hey, Jay. Thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on with me. And going to have Jack Sawyer on here later in this podcast. I'm going to bring up some of the things we talked about. But this has been a slice, my man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, anytime, Tim. It was a pleasure. You guys ever need me, I'm around. I like to get in there and talk ball. You're a fun guy, man. So anytime.
Yeah, always a pleasure, man. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Jay Richardson. Yeah, Jay Richardson, has his views, right, Austin? You've seen him around. I mean, he kind of knows what's going on, and it was an interesting little take there.
He was certainly passionately speaking out. I remember we were gathered around the Woody on Tuesday afternoon. He was there, logging some hours and sharing his thoughts. And, as a former player, as an NFL player, as somebody who knows the value of having gone through the Ohio State program, he obviously felt pretty passionately about this situation, and lots of people do. So he's not alone in sharing those views.
Yeah, I was gonna say he has street cred. He actually has locker room cred. And I think, yeah, I think that's definitely a major piece of currency in this thing. I mean, he should be listened to. All these guys, former players and current players, should be listened to. And with that said, go right into this interview I did with Jack Sawyer, the young man from Pickerington, the number 3 overall prospect in the country, who opted to forego his senior season in Pickerington to get ready to play football at Ohio State. And, just listen to this and we'll come back and you and I will chop it up a little bit more. But these are interesting times we live in.
Without a doubt.
As promised, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome in Jack Sawyer to my Tim May podcast. Jack, thanks for joining me, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, you got a lot of extra time on your hand now that you're not playing football this fall, right?
Yes, sir. Yep. A lot of extra time, a lot of more workouts though. So,
how tough before we move into like the questions that I really want to, how tough a decision was that for you? I mean, what just finally put you over the edge that this is the best thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was, one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life. Definitely. And, anyone who knows me knows that, I'm a team player. I'm a super competitive guy. So, anyone who knows me knows I want to be out there on Friday nights with all my friends and all the dudes I grew up with playing with. And, it was just kind of everything and all the uncertainty surrounding the season. And, after Big Ten got canceled and they moved it to spring, and, they're saying that, us early enrollees are going to be able to play in that possible spring season. It kind of just all came together, and I had to make a really tough decision to, just try to focus and get ready as much as possible, get in there and, be able to play day one.
Dude, how crazy would that be? You enroll in January and might be playing a game in February, because we'll see what kind of rulings they have in that regard. Whether they say, well, because obviously they haven't set all the rules yet about how they haven't even figured out how they're going to have a spring season, to be honest with you. But how crazy would that be if you were playing football at Ohio State in February?
Oh man, I mean, it'd be crazy. It's unprecedented time. So, I guess anything could really happen. I think it'd be awesome, really, being able to get in there and, get an 8-game season like it's never happened before. I think it'd be great to, get my feet wet a little bit in some live action in the games in that early spring season. It'll just help my development that much more that early on.
Have you talked with Coach Johnson and Coach Day about, obviously you talked with them about your plans, I'm sure, but I don't know, are they good for you about making this decision, or they understand what your decision was in passing up your fall season?
I mean, yeah, they always, support, everything I do. I got a lot of love for both those guys. So, they definitely support me, they always support my decisions, no matter what. So, yeah. It's about it.
I had Jay Richardson on. He's a former Ohio State defensive end, played in Ohio State and went to the Oakland Raiders and started as a rookie there 12 games and stuff and had a pretty good career going until he got banged up, obviously, because that's always the jeopardy you guys face when you strap up the helmet, right? And
right.
But I was talking to him about being a really good player from the Columbus area and choosing Ohio State and sort of the pressure you automatically kind of put on yourself in that regard, because, if you're from like Georgia or, Louisiana or something and you come in and sit for a year or two, maybe you're talking to a few people back there, but you're not worried, you don't have this pressure of people asking, hey, Jack, how come you're not in there starting immediately? But you decided you wanted to play for the hometown team. Why is that?
I mean, it kind of self-explanatory. I mean, think about it. Being from Columbus, growing up here, having a love for the Ohio State Buckeyes since I was little, running around my little James Laurinaitis jersey. It kind of just made sense, with the position I play, obviously defensive end, and Coach Johnson being a coach. I mean, it was a no-brainer for sure with the products he's put in the NFL, who he's turned players into on and off the field, really. And then, I mean, the pressure you talk about, for me, I'm the kind of guy that, I kind of like that pressure. I think I've talked about that a few times, to some other people too. But There's a lot of people who would love to be in my shoes. And I kind of always, never take anything for granted. I think a lot of players, take it for granted, they have all that pressure on themselves. And, they start, thinking, maybe, man, I hate this, I'm so stressed. But, for me, I always like to take a step back, be thankful for where I'm at, be thankful for, the pressure that's on me right now. So, because I could be one of the guys, still scratching and clawing for an offer or whatnot. So always like to keep it in a good spirits.
I was going to say, man, you're the number 3 overall prospect in the country according to the 247 composite of ratings. No brag, just fact, right? But number 2, you could be one of those guys who, by the middle of next season, you could be enjoying the name, image, and likeness situation, which I'm sure you've thought about, right? I mean, you're one of these smart guys who doesn't just think about how fast your get off is, right?
Right. No, I mean, definitely. I think it's in the back of all of our minds that that's coming up here soon, and it's going to be like the Wild West at first. It's the first time ever, so I think anything can happen, and definitely want to start building your brand and letting people who you are and stuff like that. So I think we're all getting ready for that. We're all excited about that because like I said, it's never happened before, so it's going to be crazy.
I was going to say, man, you got to get a couple sacks, though, to perpetuate it. You know what I'm saying?
I know. I got to. I have to, man. I have to.
Hey, Jack, though, as you look at this, what's the word you would use, though, about what's going on now? Is it crazy? Is it mind-boggling in the sense that, things seem to change from one day to the next or 1 week to the next, about what's going on? Even with high school football, they want to play, but there's no assurance they're going to play.
Exactly.
What's the word you would use?
Yeah, I would just say everything's still just up in the air. And, I'm kind of one of those guys that I like when, people come out with a set guideline or a set something that we're all going to listen to, we're all going to follow. I think a lot of people are a lot of the, higher ups who are making the decisions are hearing too many different things. And a lot of people who shouldn't be voicing their opinions are voicing their opinions. I would just like, everyone to just come out with, a cold-hearted, well, we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to do it, and everyone's going to follow suit, and that's how we're going to do it. You know what I mean? I think all this uncertainty stuff is just kind of it's unfair for the athletes for sure, because a bunch of my friends, practicing, but who knows if they're going to get a game or not? You know what I mean? They think they're going to play our rival Pick Central week 1. But the governor could come out tomorrow and say we're not doing that. So I think they should have came out with something probably a few weeks ago that's clear and down to the point of the certainty of the season.
Well, I was going to say that's why the Ohio State Parents Association wrote that letter to the Big Ten because they're not clear why the thing was canceled, or basically because they built in a buffer in the season where they could have pushed things back and see how things went, and then if it exploded like it's doing at North Carolina. Right now in the student body, you could have made a decision then. That's why they're upset about it. How impressed are you with that, but also with Justin Fields putting that petition up on Twitter yesterday, and it's got now basically around 250,000 signatures as we speak, basically saying they want to play, they want the protocols in place that protect them like they've had at Ohio State, for 3 months. But it's an interesting time now where players even feel the confidence to speak out.
No, yeah, definitely. Like you said, I love the idea that Justin Fields putting that petition out there. I think all the athletes, across the country, in the major, even in the mid-major, maybe lower D2 levels, I think they all kind of feel safe with the protocols that are in place at their universities. Definitely at Ohio State, I think all the players feel safe. I don't think anyone was feeling, unsafe being, around playing football and whatnot. So, I love the idea. Voice. They need to be heard. All of them want to play. It would suck to see a guy like Jonathan Cooper who came back and not be able to play in the spring and whatnot. It'd just be heartbreaking. He put so much time into working and so much time into himself and the program and all that, and just to see it go to waste, it'd be devastating.
Yeah, but you understand what people, the higher ups, are looking out for your best interest, though, don't you? From the standpoint, because this COVID-19 is so unpredictable. Even if you get it, you may not get it like I got it. I'm 66.
Exactly.
I'm 66. What are you, 14? No, I'm just joking, man. But you know what I'm saying? But then again, it may hit you as hard as me. It's individual. Yeah,
exactly. It's by person by person. I'm not one of those dudes that are saying, it's nothing or it's fake or whatnot. But like I said, I just think that the NCAA and all the conferences together should have came out and kind of said something collectively for a guideline to follow and have stuff in place for if something does happen, then this is what we're going to do. and that's how we're going to do it. You know what I mean?
Hey, wait a minute. Let me interrupt you. I ought to be young and naive about somebody taking control and doing that. I mean, that's the big thing that's come out of this, Jack, is the NCAA has been pretty quiet on this thing. Why would you ever allow 3 conferences to play in the Power 5 and 2 not? Go ahead.
It makes it doesn't make any sense at all. You know what I mean? I just think the NCAA should, be the leader at this, step out and make a clear cut. This is how we're going to do this. We're going to, it's just, it seems like they're just making a simple decision, just so complex, which I get it. It's never seen before. It's a pandemic that we haven't seen in the country, ever. And I understand that they're trying to, keep everyone safe, keep, if a player gets it and, spreads it to some, an elderly person who may die from, obviously I understand that.
Right.
We need to be safe. We need to protect, our communities and stuff like that. But I still just think, it could have been – the season could have been saved is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I got you. In some form or fashion, you're right. The last pandemic that I know of was the Spanish flu in 1918. And it's funny because there are pictures of fans sitting in stands that year. I think Ohio State played 4 or 5 games because everything was limited. Plus, it was World War I, near the end of World War I. But there were fans in the stands then wearing masks, but still cheering,
Yeah, no doubt. And there's no doubt in my mind that if Ohio State came out and said fans are allowed no matter what, that place would be packed 100,000 deep without a doubt.
Oh, that's why that petition's got 250,000 signatures on it, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Hey, last thing. I asked you a while ago about Larry Johnson, but here's Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa. Joey Bosa now the highest paid defensive player in the NFL.
Yep.
Wow, can you imagine? I know that's where you want to go. Nick Bosa, he's right there. I mean, his signing bonus, I'd take that and retire 3 times, 8 times. But what is it about Larry Johnson, if you could put it in a nutshell, that attracts – that is obviously wanted to play for Ohio State, but Larry Johnson had to be the almost the putting you over the top thing, right?
100%. I mean, like you said, Ohio State, it sells itself. But, man, Larry Johnson definitely put it over the top, like you said. Like I've said a couple of times before that I think Larry Johnson's kind of has a special – it's something about him. He's a unique guy in a way where how he can express, how to get his point across and how to really teach you and help you in different ways of your game that, maybe some other coaches wouldn't be able to do. And I think, like you said, it speaks for himself. Joey Bosa is going to be the highest paid defensive player ever. Nick Bosa had 10 sacks as a rookie. Chase Young just broke a sack record at Ohio State with 16.5, was up for the Heisman. He's just a unique person. He's really a 1 in a million type of guy of how he can express himself to so many different kids with different backgrounds. It's really unique, honestly, is all I can really describe it as.
Have you ever played for a coach who doesn't curse?
No, honestly, I haven't.
Well,
no.
There you go. Larry Johnson. You're headed into that. I'm not saying all the coaches don't curse.
He's unique. I mean, he says, he shouldn't have to yell or he shouldn't have to curse to get, what he wants out of his players. And I'm 100% with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're Ohio State for a reason. I mean, it's like this isn't like being begged to go to some faraway state U. I mean, the level of talent there should be motivation enough, right? That's what you're saying.
Exactly. No, exactly. 100%.
All right. Last thing. I know I said that, but that's my calling card to ask 3 last things. Who knows? We may edit it and make that the last thing. No, I'm just joking, man. How much attention, if that's the correct term, and I think Jeremy Birmingham touched on this with you too, but how much attention have you gotten from other schools since this Big Ten thing came down? Meaning, if I was a salesman, I would keep knocking on your door until you've signed your national letter of intent, because what have I got to lose, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
How much attention have you gotten from elsewhere?
Honestly, it's kind of dead. I don't really get a ton of attention from other schools anymore because I think they all know if I could have signed my letter of intent last year, I would have already signed it, sealed it, and sent it in. Yeah. But I do from a couple schools. Like LSU and those guys, they reach out to me every once in a while. But pretty much everyone knows that I'm a Buckeye. I mean, there's no flipping me. So they hadn't really been as much as people would think.
Yeah. Yeah, they had you at hello. But when they contact you, they go, still interested? Or, sure, you're not still interested. How do they approach you?
I mean, honestly, no one's really texted me or called me in a while.
Okay.
They usually just send me mail in the mail. So just say,
Yeah.
the little cards and whatnot, but that's really about it.
Your guns look sort of like mine. No, I'm just messing with
I
you.
know you're looking good, man.
Oh yeah. I just want
Looking
to
in
put a
shape.
jacket on, so I had some class to my situation here. But
I know.
so what kind of shape are you in right now? Obviously, you had some, a little bit of an injury or something last year, right? Or you got banged up a little, but what kind of shape are you in? Let people know what size you're at, and what's your aim going into January 1? What do you want to be at, et cetera, when you show up ready to play?
Yeah. I mean, I'm about 6'5", 250. I'm closing on 250 here soon.
Wow.
So I'm in the best shape of my life. I feel like I'm moving better than ever before. I definitely feel like I'm a lot stronger than I ever have been. And I think that I'm gonna go in. My goal is to go into Ohio State around 260, and then let Coach Mick put the rest on and do his thing a little bit with me. But I'm just in the best shape of my life. Is really all I can describe it as. I put in a lot of work. Like you said, I had an injury back in November. It was a tough grind back, but I feel better than I ever have before. Leg feels great, whole body feels great. And, I'm just ready to get in and make some plays.
Dude, since you were 11 or 12 years old, when you were really paying attention, I'm sure you've heard of Coach Larry Johnson. You've heard of Mervyn Meyer, now replaced by Ryan Day, whose fire I think people are now noticing more than ever. First players, and Mick Marotti, a legend in his deal, and now you're going to get to go. I mean, I would think back then, you're thinking, maybe if I get big enough and good enough, I can maybe go to Ohio State. But now you're getting ready to go there and deal with those guys. I mean, that's just, it's almost like Christmas a little bit, isn't it, for you?
100%. I can't wait. I can't wait to be on Coach Mick's workout plan, get me all, jacked and ripped. I can't wait for that. And then, being able to work with Coach Johnson every day is going to be, going to be awesome. Like you said, it's going to be like Christmas morning every day. Just trying to get as best as I can in the weight room and on the field, going through the bag drills and whatnot. I just can't wait, honestly. It's just going to be awesome.
Gotcha. Hey, Jack, this was exactly what I thought it would be. This was a great time, great conversation with you, man. I appreciate it, and good luck. We'll talk more down the road, brother.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, Jack. And we're back. Boston Ward. We've heard from Jay Richardson. We heard from Jack Sawyer. What do you think's coming down, man? I mean, I would have said a week ago after the Big Ten decided to cancel the season, the fall season, push it back to possibly in the spring, that was the end of the story. But, Kevin Warren made a big point about listening to the players' demands who, in essence, the college athlete unity situation when they put out that letter about Big Ten athletes all agreeing about the COVID-19 situation. He read it and, in essence, responded to them. How do you not respond to at least 5 major universities in your conference out of 14, parents coming up with a letter saying that with the proper protocols, they believe their sons should be able to play football this fall. And also the football players all stepping up and the petition that Justin Fields, the quarterback at Ohio State, circulated on Twitter on Sunday suddenly has picked up more than 235,000 signatures. How do you not also pay attention to those pleas, demands, whatever you want to call them?
Well, I think you have to acknowledge them. You have to have some conversations and address them with the players, address them with the coaches, address them with the families, maybe give an interview where you don't evade all of the reasons that you made this decision, which he didn't make by himself. I think it's important to remember that he works at the leisure of the university presidents, and they're the ones who have made this vote and who, by every indication and every single person that you and I have both talked to about this over the last week, there is no reconsideration going on. The Big Ten fall football season is lost. I think that they could have been – I think delay was the right option. I think that Ohio State wanted that. I think you could have bought time, and the saliva testing, may change things. I don't think the end outcome really would have been any different. But you certainly, when you have this much support from multiple programs, the most meaningful programs in the Big Ten, if we're being honest, and the most significant player in the league, that should tell you that you didn't handle the rollout very well. And this league has always prided itself on unity and the messaging being consistent from 1 through 10, 1 through 14, whatever the situation is with the current number in that Big Ten. And it doesn't have that right now. It has to recognize that it made some errors along the way, even if the outcome is probably, inevitable and wasn't going to change.
Yeah. The interesting thing too, though, is there are all these mixed messages coming out because you've got players who are opting out across the country. Also, you had them opting out in the Big Ten before the decision came down. I mean, Micah Parsons from Penn State and Rondale Moore, for example, from Purdue are two of the star players. We're going to be two of the premier players in this league this year. So they stepped away because they were concerned about it. Yet you've got other players like Justin Fields and Jonathan Cooper, these current Buckeyes who would want to play. They've left no doubt about it. But then you also have their parents saying, like Little League fashion, they have my permission to play. If the certain protocols that you've laid out are followed, because they're confident that Ohio State is going to take care of its business from both a testing standpoint, a medical standpoint, and a safety standpoint from, the way they practice, et cetera. So, man, this is, I've likened it to, you ever see those videos of these bus drivers who drive these buses down these winding switchback roads in the Andean mountains of Chile with like 50 people behind them? And over here on the left side is this beautiful mountain rising straight up. And on the right side is this beautiful valley going straight down. And if you don't maneuver correctly, you're over the edge. And I think Kevin Warren probably and the Big Ten people feel more like that bus driver than they do the people in the back of the bus. And meanwhile, the people in the back of the bus are counting on him to be as safe as possible as he maneuvers and hopes, for goodness sakes, the brakes don't go out.
Yeah, and look, I think that they are trying to keep it on the road for the future of the league and for the future of these, student athletes as much as possible. I recognize fully how difficult the situation is for them. I think that the SEC, Big 12, and ACC, once the lawyers and presidents and doctors down there really are faced with the situation, camps didn't open until Monday for the SEC.
Right.
I have a hard time believing that once they get to that point where the Big Ten was in a week or two, that their decision will be any different. I don't believe that contact tracing protocol, the way it's in place right now, makes it feasible to have a college football season. I think it's great that Justin Fields is stepping up and using his voice, or Trevor Lawrence, or whoever else. I think it's wonderful that Big Ten parents are doing everything they can to fight right now. Everybody needs hope right now. That's great. We all wish that there was college football. I would never advocate for them not to do that. And I really wish that there was college football. And I hate having to sit here with the Debbie Downer reports that the presidents aren't changing their mind. Everybody was clinging for that on social media or looking for the petitions and the letters from the Big Ten parents. And maybe there's a chance, maybe this will do it and tip the scales the other way. I don't believe that it will. I think the main thing that it will do is set up Ohio State to push more strongly for that December start of practice and to maybe play in January. I think there are a ton of challenges involved in that. I think they're gearing up for the next fight with this and laying the foundation, because there's not, even if they reconsidered, I talked to people about this over the weekend and at different schools. They released that de facto bubble. They stopped having workouts. They stopped testing. If Ohio State came back to the Woody tomorrow, there would probably be positive tests. They would probably have to quarantine for 2 weeks before they could practice again. So starting September 26th is no longer even practical because they made that decision last week. So, I don't take any joy in having that told to me and then passing it on. But that's just the situation that the Big Ten is in right now.
And you understand the frustration. I mean, college football in general, but Ohio State in particular, for example, hadn't just flattened their curve. They had wiped it out. I mean, with the protocols they had taken and had done everything right. As Dr. Corey M. Teague said on that little interview I did with him, I mean, they did everything they were supposed to by the book, followed protocol. Ohio State did too, set up all of these situations to take care of business. And you've done your due diligence, and yet at the end of the day, you were told that wasn't good enough. In essence, that's what they're saying. We don't feel comfortable with this. And you and I are right. I mean, but you, like we've said a million times on here on this Groundhog Day edition of At Speed podcast. Man, that was a slip. On this Groundhog edition of the Tim May podcast, I was over at Indianapolis way too much this weekend. The bottom line is you can still get COVID-19 going to pick up fast food. I mean, or going into the convenience store or hanging out with your buddies. There is no stopping this until there's a vaccine. Yet, as Dr. Corey Teague said, but is there an acceptable risk about it? And are you willing to take? And, the parents have said they're willing to take that based on these protocols staying in place. So that's the collision we're dealing with here right now is parents giving permission, players wanting to take responsibility, and yet the leaders, like I said, the drivers of the bus saying, no, we're not going to take this. This route's too slippery today. We're not going down the mountain.
Well, and even when you
I like carrying on an analogy when I get one going, even though it doesn't really,
you can't
make sense. Actually, I think that's a good analogy, to be honest with you.
You can't let go of the wheel when you're driving down that mountain.
Bingo. Keep it in low gear.
So here's, you look at the players being willing to take the risk, and we know that they are without question, and that the parents are supportive of that. Part of the problem now is that the initial request was not to sign any liability waivers from schools. That was, part of the Pac-12 United, part of the Big Ten movement early on. Federal congressmen were asking them not to do that and sign those forms or mandate that they be required. And now the conversation has shifted that they would be willing to do that. And I don't know what the right option is either way. I know that the university presidents are not willing at this point to take that risk on behalf of the students.
Yeah.
It's a hard, painful decision, and it affects not just players, not just coaches, not just their families, but entire communities in the Big Ten footprint, and eventually, I believe strongly still, around the country.
Yeah, but let me interrupt you. But from a legally binding standpoint, that's what I brought up with Dr. Teague. I said, when you folks basically attach your names to a letter like they did about the acceptable risk. Say that 3 times. It's tough, but also keeping in mind that the schools and the conference will follow a certain protocol. You're sort of signing. I mean, you're sort of like ipso facto issuing a waiver in many respects. And like he said, he's trusting of Ohio State to take care of things in that regard. That's the faith they have in him, that if his kid gets a concussion, they will look after him. If his kid gets a Charlie horse, they'll look after him. If his kid gets COVID-19, they will look after him. So, both he and Justin Fields talking about the petition and stuff, they're in essence saying they're willing to take the risk, which any good lawyer would come back later and say, hey, this is what you said, and you made it public. This wasn't some secret. So it's just an interesting time we're in, man.
Yeah, like I said, there's still issues with, Congress, weighing in on this and what's looming with name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
How big of a factor is that right now? We're left to draw our own conclusions until Kevin Warren actually speaks about it. But that's still just part of it. You're still going to have local government officials, whether that's state, county, city, whatever, across the Big Ten, having their say about what you can and can't do. And that was never going to change. There were just going to be challenges all along. And I get that you're asking, the teams that are willing to play, Penn State, Iowa, Nebraska, if you're capable of doing it, to put that schedule together. But what would really be better? I think
right
leagues, when contact tracing comes into play, will not be able to play this fall. So planning for the spring where you might actually have a national championship to compete for. And again, that's getting way down the road, and I don't know how practical that will actually be. But it's just not going to happen this fall, and you have to prepare for the next thing. And this is the only way forward that I can see right now.
And by the way, I refer to this as Groundhog Day edition. But if you remember the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, every time he woke up, it was the same day, but he took a different path every day and became a piano player, a great dancer, et cetera. That's what this is like. This isn't like waking up, it's the same old story. There's a new twist every week. And you and I, once again, have handled, I think, this switch back in the road, I think, extremely well, don't you?
But you never know what the right or wrong option is going to be. Like I think that delay would have worked. But I don't necessarily believe that it would have led to them to play on September 26th or any other date. The contact tracing part of it is the one that I cannot get past for playing football right now. Not in a bubble, and if you don't have a vaccine, you're going to wipe out rosters in a hurry. And this weekend, strengthened my belief in that because of what you saw with the clusters at North Carolina, Oklahoma taking a couple days off and immediately having 9 players test positive.
Yeah.
Sorority house with 21, 23 cases in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then Alabama players speaking out on social media about, bars being packed, no masks on bid day down in Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
That continues, then there's a great chance that Kevin Warren will be vindicated in his decision to be proactive early. It's just right now we're caught up in this PR battle with the mixed messaging in the Big Ten and the desire to play when the other leagues weren't willing to jump in the pool with the Buckeyes, with the Big Ten, however you want to look at it. And they're just frustrated by that. But the end result, I'm telling you, this is where everybody is headed.
Yeah. I think the idea of a spring league, which basically would be a late winter league, is kicking the can down to something that probably is not going to happen too. If you follow my,
I agree. Yeah.
Like you said, until there's a vaccine that can satisfy everyone. How do you play football again based on the way Ohio State and the Big Ten decided to cancel this fall season? How do you play it until that happens? Based on the criteria they used, I don't understand how you could and in their minds feel safe about it. That's why, as Dr. Corey Teague said, you have this acceptable risk. I wish they had another term for that other than that, because I don't say it very well. You have this acceptable risk that you're willing to take. That in the leaders' minds, that's not good enough at this point. So we'll be back a week from now to see how yet again things have changed, to see whether the Justin Fields petition has gained 1 million signatures or not, and whether that will matter. But until then, for Boston Ward, this is Tim May with the Tim May Podcast. We'll see you next week.